We're going to get rolling. All right, welcome to our New York Giants Preservation Society meeting for tonight, December 3rd,
On
2025,
ABC
with
tomorrow.
Steve
What
Summers.
happened?
Me feel on channel 8
Please
o'clock,
stop
Okay.
tomorrow.
talking. Our special guest tonight is the fabulous Steve Summers. Before we get to Steve, I have a few announcements to make. Next Thursday, we'll have a meeting with David Krell. David has a new book, Bo Belinsky, and we're going to be talking about his book and basically his relationship with former New York Giant and San Francisco Giant, Bill Rigney. Bill Rigney was the manager of the California Angels when Belinsky, came into stardom. On the 18th, we have Mark Mancini. He is going to be talking about Willie Mays as a catalyst for the very famous Charlie Brown Christmas episode. Our Affinities Party will take place on December 20th. We have 58 guests coming. And we have been moved to a room on the main floor. Dieter, who owns the place, wants to give us a more prominent position. With that being said, we can have more people come.
Now.
Whoever McDowell is, I McDowell, if you could please mute, you're being very rude. We are going to be on the main floor. Steve Summers will be there. We're going to have a great party there. Steve will be selling books and autographing books. Why am I telling you this? Because we have a bigger room. More people can come if they want. I am not extending any more invitations via email. So if any people who are on this stream tonight are more than welcome to email me, I will send you all the information, and you are welcome to come. So tonight's guest is Steve Summers. Steve is actually a member of the New York Giants Preservation Society. He's going to be talking about his book. He's going to be talking about his career, both in San Francisco and in New York. And of course, the people here in New York know him as the great radio personality on WFAN. For those who are not privileged enough to ever hear Steve, Steve is he's hilarious. Self-deprecating humor, never thought he was above anybody, had the greatest monologues before his show started. Self-deprecating, never took himself too seriously. And he may not have been the most famous person on FAN like Mike and the Mad Dog, but without a question of a doubt, he was the most beloved. Nobody ever said anything bad about him in print, in radio, or anything else. So it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Steve. Before I welcome Steve, I want to just apologize if any of you thought I was getting a little hot-headed. We're trying to run a great program here, and for people to be interfering and not muting themselves when people are talking, it's not the right way to do things, and we're trying to avoid that. So please accept my apologies for that. And without further ado, Steve Summers, welcome aboard. Let's give it up for Steve Summers.
Well, Gary, thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you and everybody listening to this with me. I apologize and appreciate your patience in me trying to be technologically aware of how to get into a Zoom. I've had nothing but issues with it. So again, I apologize for being a little bit late, and I appreciate everyone's patience. Gary, do you want me to just start off with what the book is about?
Why don't you tell us, what the book's about, why you wrote the book? Tell us about your life and growing up in San Francisco and rooting for your Giant heroes. And then we're going to have a plethora of questions.
Okay, that's fine. Whatever.
Steve, you don't see it, but here is your book. Here's the new Steve Summers book. It was just released. You could get it on Amazon or Triumph Books. And Steve will be selling this at our party at Affinities. and it's going to be a great read. It has tremendous pre-sales. So, Steve, we wish you the best of luck. Why don't you start talking?
Well, okay, Gary, and thank you very much for the very kind introduction. I wish I felt all of the things you were talking about regarding me. I wish I felt that way about myself. Of all the people over more than 50 years, I started in the 60s in San Francisco. Yes, of course, my hometown, a native San Franciscan. And I went to the and what I'm going to be talking about is in the book. I went to the very first game between the Giants and the Dodgers in April of 1958. My uncle Tevis, a dentist who pulled out my baby teeth with his bare hands, going to a dentist today is very traumatic because of what he did. But my dad, who is my hero, not that he was the most educated in the world. He was from Hungary, came through Ellis Island, and like a lot of Jewish people, did not stick around on the Lower East Side. A cousin, a family member, went looking for gold in Sacramento. And how foolish was this? Because he never found any gold. But my father ended up in California as his father and mother and his three brothers all came from Hungary. He met my mother in California, and they married in 1942. The bottom line is that my dad ran with his brother Morris a mom and pop grocery store in the Tenderloin district of San Francisco. My mother hated the fact that I would help him and my brother too on Saturdays and Sundays in this neighborhood. The mom and pop.
Yeah, but it's not charged.
What is that?
I did lower it.
Please.
I was in the process of lowering it the first time you said it.
Steve, wait a second.
Yeah. Okay, not a problem. But the bottom line is, my dad was my hero. Of all the people that I've ever interviewed in my lifetime, my father was truly my hero. Not the most educated, but he knew right from wrong, and he had common sense. And especially in this day and age, common sense isn't so common. But I did go to the first Giants game, and my Uncle Tevis, who I went with, he reminded me years later that I asked him why the New York baseball Giants were playing a home game in San Francisco. I just, at the age of just about 10, didn't understand why the Giants were out here playing the Dodgers, and where were the San Francisco Seals? The game was in Seals Stadium, where the AAA Pacific Coast League San Francisco Seals had played, and that was quite a Pacific Coast League where a lot of the major leaguers to be were playing. Casey Stengel even, Lazzari, DiMaggio played for the San Francisco Seals, and a lot of Giants fans in San Francisco a lot of Seals fans wanted to see the Yankees come out because of DiMaggio, because of Lazzari, because of Grissetti, because of Mark Koenig, who I interviewed on The Fan a couple of years before he passed away. And Mark Koenig was the shortstop on the 27 Yankees, a native San Franciscan. And Koenig was a roommate of Babe Ruth on the road. And Koenig, when he was on with me on The Fan, mentioned that Babe, when he did make curfew at 11 o'clock, he usually came with two other women, and there were many, many more nights when he didn't show up for curfew at all. But not to be overly penalized was Babe Ruth. bottom line is, I went to that first game. The Giants won it by the score of 8-0. Ruben Gomez beat Don Drysdale starting for the LA Dodgers. And there were a number of notable things that I saw growing up with the Giants. Of course, I saw Willie Mays. Mays, as many of you are probably aware, did not like playing in San Francisco. There was a racial incident over him wanting to buy a home when he first came to San Francisco. He loved New York, the stickball, Harlem, the kids that rallied around him. He loved the Polo Grounds, the whole thing. But I did see him play baseball. He was the best player I've ever seen, but the most popular player in San Francisco as a Giant was Willie McCovey, because he was homegrown. He came through the ranks of minor leagues. And not only did I see McCovey's debut in person in July 30th of 1959, he ended up as Rookie of the Year. And on the subject of McCovey, I saw him in Game 1 and in Game 7 of the 62 World Series, in which he lined out to Richardson. And everybody knows about Game 7 between the Yankees and Giants at Candlestick Park. I went to the first game at Candlestick Park. I have the ticket stub for that. And I also saw a couple of milestones. I saw Marichel's Major League debut against Philadelphia. It was a one-hitter, and the one hit came in the 8th inning by the Philadelphia catcher, Clay Dalrymple, and Gene Mauch, who was the manager of the Phillies, protested the game because of Marichel straddling the corner of the pitching rubber. And Gene Mauch thought that was illegal. But of course, we know if any part of your cleat and your beginning of your delivery is on that, rubber, it's legal. And Clay Dalrymple got the only hit off of Marichel in his Major League debut in 1960. So I saw McCovey's debut, I saw Marichel's debut, and one of the greatest pitching performances in the history of baseball took place, and I think it was 1963. I stayed for the entire 16 innings between Marichel and Warren Spahn, who was 42 at the time, and Willie Mays won it with a home run in the bottom of the 16th. Marichel and Warren Spahn, who has won more games than any left-hander in history, 363, and Mays won it in the bottom of the 16th with a home run. And here's the interesting thing. Both pitchers that went the distance, that doesn't happen today, but both pitchers who went the distance took their next turn in the rotation 5 days later. And both pitchers threw over 200 pitches in the game that went 16 innings. Not one member of anybody's bullpen between the Milwaukee Braves and the Giants. And, of course, the guy that really kind of got me wanting to be a broadcaster and planting the seeds for me wanting to come to New York. And that was, if you looked at my high school yearbook, you would see under my graduation picture in 1965, you would see ambition, New York sportscaster. And it took me 22 years to get here at the age of 40, but I got here. And well, you know, a lot of people are saying nice things now. A lot of people in the book Susan Waldman, Mike Breen, Iron Eagle, Howie Rose. A number of people were saying that I wish I thought about myself that way, but because I would know when I would make a mistake or didn't have the energy on the air. But I was lucky enough to last for 34 years at WFAN, and I was not this, and Gary was right. Mike and the Mad Dog, Imus, they were the real stars of that radio station. I was very happy to be a part of the lineup, and was the first overnight, midnight to 6, midnight to 5:30 after Imus came, and the station, was, at first they didn't want to hire me because I wasn't from here, but they had interviewed me a number of times, and my agent, who was from Brooklyn, thought because of the humor, because of the sarcasm, because of my knowledge of what was taking place in New York as a young boy growing into adulthood, they gave me a chance. And the audience, as much as the good things are being said about me, the bottom line is the real stars of my program over the years were the callers. And that's not gratuitous. It is what I believe, and it's what I think. And they made the program. They gave me an opportunity. They gave me a chance.
Hey, Steve.
They gave me a...
Steve,
Yeah.
speaking of
Yep.
speaking of your callers, I got to give you a few names, okay? And I need
Yep.
you to tell us a little bit about some of these callers.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
We're going to start with Short Al.
Short Al was a vendor at Ebbets Field and called me over many, many years from the very, very beginning. And Short Al and I became friends. I became friends with one of his sons as well. We broke some bread in Brooklyn at Junior's Deli. He wanted me to go and have the cheesecake there. So, but the bottom line, he sold beer and he sold peanuts at Ebbets Field. And Short Al from Brooklyn was a beloved caller. There was a very famous caller because she was written about in the New York Times, and that was Doris from Rego Park. Doris had elephantitis. She was a shut-in, lived with her parents. She called the radio station and me just about every night, a die-hard New York metropolitan fan. And Doris, many of you probably are aware that on the final Sunday of the year, the New York Times Magazine goes through those people that passed away that year. And in 2003, and I'll never forget 2003, because it was the year my father died, he belonged to me. It was the year Art Carney of the Honeymooners died, and he belonged to the world. And Doris from Rego Park, she died in 2003, and the New York Times Magazine did a whole page on Doris from Rego Park.
Yeah, you had such a wonderful relationship with her. May she rest in peace. And with Short Al, I got to give you two more people here. And I was watching the videos today because I had to get myself psyched for this. You got to tell us about Jerome from Manhattan.
Well, Jerome from Manhattan probably called on medication. I mean, we even played the Twilight Zone theme, and we called it the Jerome Zone. Whenever he was on the line and we were taking his call, we would play the theme to the Twilight Zone, and then welcome to the Jerome zone. No matter what the Yankees did, he was a diehard Yankee fan. No matter what the Yankees did, he complained. Even when they won the World Series and they would have a parade, he complained about the players who weren't in the front cars, with the Canyon of Heroes. And he always had something to bitch and kvetch and complain about. And he was a wild man. There was a method to his madness, and madness is the operative word here. We think probably, and he passed away some years ago, as did Doris, of course, and Short Al. Most of those callers that gave me a chance, gave me a breath, gave me a life, and gave me a career.
I got one more. I got one more.
Indebted.
One more.
Yep.
Jerry from Queens.
Yep.
Jerry from Queens.
Well, that's Seinfeld.
Yes.
And I met Seinfeld. I met a Seinfeld on a Saturday night, Sunday morning, about 1:30 in the morning. And the story is in the book. He had been with another comedian, George Wallace, not the Alabama governor, but George Wallace. They had been at a comedy club right around the corner from where I live, and Catch a Rising Star. And at 1:30 in the morning, they went across the street to a bodega to get, guess what? Cereal, which was featured food on the Seinfeld TV show. Anyway, I went in there because after watching Saturday Night Live, it got over at 1:30. It was in July, and it was still very warm out. I was wide awake and went down to the bodega, the deli, to get a pint of ice cream. And there I see the only two people in the store, Seinfeld and George Wallace, and the cashier. That was it. So I thought I would walk up to Seinfeld. I was a little bit nervous because you never know how they're going to react. And I took out a business card that said WFAN, had my name on the card. And I thought, okay, I'll walk over and I'll say, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt. It's late. I just wanted to say hello, and I'm a fan. And he never made eye contact as I approached him. And when I gave him the card, he was looking from the cereal down to the card, and he went, "You're Steve Summers?" I couldn't boing. I mean, it was like sex. I couldn't believe that he knew who I was and was listening. Well, the following Monday, he was on with me, and over 30 years, we emailed back and forth. A lot of those emails are in the book, and he wrote the foreword to the book, and he had a final email on my retirement show back in 2021. So the bottom line is Seinfeld and I became good radio friends. I'm not in his inner circle. I'm not, invited. We haven't broken any bread, but as a radio relationship, I mean, his support over the years, just absolutely tremendous. Now, Jerry Seinfeld is from Manhasset on Long Island, but he always called in as Jerry from Queens, and he co-hosted with me on a number of occasions as well.
Steve, I got to tell you, the reason you lasted so long is because your audience loved you. So take us back to two more things, and then we'll open it up for questions. I assume retirement was probably not your choice. And finally, what made you write this fantastic new book?
Well, it wasn't even my idea. Well, first of all, Eddie Schizzeri, the Eddie Schizzeri, he says I was a member of the involuntary retirement community. They did offer me overnight again, but I did not at my age, and that's for a younger person. And that's how I started in the business. as a young guy willing to pay the company for the opportunity to start a career and to do what I've always wanted to do. So the bottom line is I didn't want to go back to overnight, but they've had me a week ago Wednesday. I did a 2-hour show, and WFAN on all the platforms of Instagram and Facebook, they're going to promote the book. They can't be doing more to help me push the book. And I think the book is going to make a nice holiday gift. There's stuff in there that I did not talk about on the radio, mainly because other people have problems. My brother was born disabled, mentally, physically, emotionally, and my mother and father, my heroes, they didn't want to give him away to an institution, as was recommended. He was born in 1943 and died of, I didn't talk about him on the air. I didn't talk about my cancer on the air. And the reason, very simple, other people have their own problems. And I didn't want to turn the program into something that it wasn't meant to be, about any illness or, things with me. Then people are calling and they're talking about, well, we hope you will recover from cancer, or we hope you die from cancer, whatever it may be. But the bottom line is, I didn't talk about the cancer, but I do in the book. I do talk about my brother. That is in the book. And the bottom line is, my mother and my father sacrificed their entire lives for my brother, and they never made me feel unwanted or unloved. I always had as much support from them as they gave their lives, and other people would do the same. I'm sure the people in your audience, Gary, are people, and you're with everything, they would do the same thing. Not news breaking there. Parents, it was suggested that they send him to an institution, but they said no to that. They didn't want to give him up at all, not even for one day. And even though my parents were not perfect, they really did everything they could for my brother and for me too. I didn't really get all of their support in the very beginning when they knew that I wanted to become a sportscaster. My mother wanted me to go into becoming a shoe salesman, and I told her I don't have a foot fetish. And my father wanted me to go into real estate, and I said, real estate? You got to be kidding me. I can't pay my rent. So the bottom line is, my parents did, not perfect. Nobody is. It's easy to have a child, but not always easy to raise one. Whether that child turns out to be normal, whatever normal is, or that child turns out to be disabled, as my brother was. My parents were saints, really terrific people.
They sounded, and they produced a great son. So the last thing is, were you approached to write the book, or you decided, hey, I want to write a book about my career?
Well, I was first approached to write a book in 1988 by the agent that came back to me in 2021 and said, you want to do something with a book now, since you may have more time? How about memoirs? You've been through a lot. One thing I want to say about starting out in San Francisco, in the book is an assignment from my 5th grade where I wrote that I wanted to be in sports, that I wanted to be a sports writer. This was in the 5th grade, and I had a copy of that, and it's in the book. So the fact that the New York thing came because of meeting Russ Hodges. What was your question again, Gary?
No, I asked, were you approached to write the book, or you decided on your own to write it?
Oh, yeah, no, I was approached by an agent, literary agent, who first asked me, as I said, back in 1988, and then came back to me in 2021. And I said, okay. And he also, we also got a former editor from Sports Illustrated, a guy by the name of Dick Friedman, who became a fan working for SI here in New York. Originally from Boston, but was working in New York, became a fan of the program, and he also wrote a couple of books himself, and he basically took everything from me, put it onto his word processor, and sent it off to Triumph.
That's great. Again, the book is Steve Summers, Me Here, You There, My 3 Decades Overnight, Under the Covers, Schmoozing, SPORTS, as Captain Midnight for WFAN. I got one last thing to say before we open it up, Steve. I got to tell you, of all your bits, my favorite one was about a Mets pitcher named Matt Harvey. Because when Matt Harvey pitched a good game, you did the whole honeymooners bit with Harvey's a lovely name, and I just love that. So just know
that was also, and that was also Seinfeld's favorite piece of production as well.
Well, he has good taste.
Yes.
All right, we're going to open it up.
Well, okay.
This is Steve from Riverdale. Steve?
Steve, it's so great to hear your voice. I don't expect you to remember me, but when I mention one thing, you might. I was a regular caller on Mike and the Mad Dog, but it was altogether different when you called in. There was, if you had something that they weren't agreeing with, especially Francesca, there'd be like a little controversy. When you called Steve Summers, it was a fun conversation. I lived in Riverdale at the time. You and I contemporaries. You're 2 months younger than I am. I moved to Surprise, Arizona. The last time I called you, it was Steve from Riverdale, but now it's Steve from Surprise, Arizona. Don't expect you to remember that. But after a couple of minutes of talking, you said, I think Steve would like to hear this. And you played the Bobby Thompson home run call by Russ Hodges. Not sure if you remember that. It's so great to hear your voice.
Let me just say, hold on one second. Gary may have to translate here. There's a little bit of breaking up, a little bit of garble on me listening here. Gary, or at least can you sum up what he has just mentioned?
Steve said that he used to call you as Steve from Riverdale. He then moved to Arizona, but he would always say to you, this is Steve from Riverdale, and then you would say, wait a second, and then you would play the Bobby Thompson Shot Heard Round the World.
Oh, yeah. Well, sure. I played that every October 3rd, 1951. So every October 3rd, on the anniversary of that shot, I would play Russ Hodges. And I met Russ Hodges when I was 10 years old. This was a rare game that I went to with my dad, who was always at the store on 517 O'Farrell Street between Leavenworth and Jones in the Tenderloin out there. But anyway, bottom line is I left my father. He didn't know where I was. He went to security looking to try and find me, but I left my father when I told him I needed to go to the bathroom, and went up to the broadcast booth, no security up there, and knocked on the door maybe 2 hours before a game. Russ Hodges answered my knocking on the door. I told him that I wanted to do what he was doing. He invited me into the booth. I sat down. He talked with me for maybe 20, 25 minutes. And I told him that that his voice was very exciting. And again, that I wanted to do what he was doing. And he talked about the New York Giants. He talked about Willie Mays. He talked about Ruben Gomez. He talked about the Giants. He talked about Manhattan. He talked about the Polo Grounds. He made it very exciting for a young, impressionable kid to want to be in New York.
That's
One of
great.
the first things I did when I came to New York was go and see what used to be where the Polo Grounds is.
Thank you, Steve. We're going to go to another alumnus from WFAN, Ed Randall, and then we'll go to Harvey. Ed, you're up.
I just wanted to say that I'm here because of Steve, and I love all you guys, and hope you have a happy holiday. I got to go write a piece on Don Mattingly, but I just wanted to tell everybody. I just wanted to tell everybody how much I love this guy, how kind he was to me all the years that we were together at WFAN. I think the world of him. I love his humor, his sensitivity, and what a wonderful person he is. And I'm done.
Well, I could say the same about you, and you
No,
have been an
don't say.
inspiration. And Ed runs a program for anybody and everybody that should be aware of prostate cancer, and nobody puts in more time, more effort, and more energy into the program that Ed Randall runs. He's selfless, and whatever he just said about me, I could easily and truthfully say the same about him.
Well,
And Ed, we will be sending you a donation from our party to Fans for the Cure.
thank you very much. I appreciate it. Steve, love you. Have wonderful holidays, and I'll talk to you offline.
You too, Ed. Be well.
Thank you, buddy.
All
Thank
right,
you
we'll
all.
go to not Matt Harvey, but Harvey Weinberg. Harvey?
Steve, first time, long
Hi,
time.
Harvey.
Yeah,
Yes,
first time,
Harvey.
long time.
Hi, Harvey. How are you?
I'm well. How are you? It's good to hear your voice. I have just a quick question inside radio. What,
Sure.
if any, relationship did you have, association with Don Imus and Charles McCord?
Well, Imus, he followed me for a few years. I was midnight to 6 in the beginning, and when he came to the station, I was then midnight to 5:30, and he came on at 5:30. He was rough, but he said to me on the air and off the air that I had one of the best overnight shows he had ever heard. And I would never say that if he didn't say that to me off the air and on the air. And Charles McCord, I cannot say enough good things about this man. Just helpful, supportive, encouraging, informational, and just so great with Imus, as is Ed McMahon. And here's a guy who turned to God. He was very religious, but he was as professional as a second banana. He was really a first banana. And then, of course, later on, it was Bernard McGurk
Oh, yeah.
who took over, and working with Sid Rosenberg on WABC. WABC had me on about 2 weeks ago to talk about the book with Sid Rosenberg, because Sid used to work at WFAN. But Charles McCord, I got along with Imus. He appreciated what I was doing in the middle of the night, and he understood the shtick. He understood the Sacra Tomato. Gary brings up the Harvey thing with the Metropolitan pitcher. One of my favorite bits, if I have the time, was Rangers versus Icelanders.
Oh, yeah.
Broadway versus Old Country Road, urban versus rural, ducks and chicks and geese better scurry when I take you out in my surrey with the fringe on top. And Islander fans hated that in the very beginning, but eventually caught on that all I was trying to do was to illuminate the great unsung rivalry that exists between the Rangers and Icelanders. The old country road, the Nassau Mausoleum versus Broadway versus Madison Square Garden. And I always said that Islander fans or Icelander fans were Ranger fans who couldn't get a ticket to see the Rangers. So I was alienating Icelander fans in the beginning, and even the PR director for the team wanted to have me stop calling them the Icelanders. Took me to lunch one day, sent a car into the city where I live, and brought me to Long Island, or Short Island, as I used to say. And the bottom line is that she tried to convince me to drop calling the team the Icelanders, but I never did. And yet, a diehard Icelander fan, a communications professor at William Patterson University in Wayne, New Jersey, had me speak to his class, and the class, wanting to get into broadcasting, read my book, and then had to do an assignment for the class on what they thought about the book. And then I spoke to these students about a week ago, and it was quite a pleasure. And the professor, with his PhD, grew up listening to me on the fan as an Icelander fan. And yet, here he was extending himself and inviting me to speak to his class after they did an assignment on reading my book. Unbelievable.
You are believable, Steve. Very believable.
Thanks, Harvey.
Thank you so much.
You want to be, people say I can't take a compliment. Yes, I can. And I have an ego, and it's nice to hear, but I don't think that way of myself, because I know that when tomorrow comes, I could have always been better. And that's what was my goal, to be better the next day than I was today. And writing and the monologue, everyone says, oh, you're such a good writer. No, I'm not. The key to the monologue that I did was the delivery. If I delivered it the way I felt it, if I delivered it the way I wrote it, I didn't do it off the top of my head. Every day I would write what would be my monologue to open the program. And the monologue, it was this very simple writing, because with radio, you only hear it once. And if you're writing for a newspaper, a blog, a website, whatever, you can reread it. But with radio, you were only hearing it one time. So the writing of my monologue really takes a back seat to the delivery with the monologue and any and all production pieces that I would want to put in it.
Okay, take your.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Harvey. Steve? Steve?
Yes.
I think Tony Romo just threw another interception.
He threw 5. He threw 5 in the highlight. Oh yeah, you can have Dallas. Yeah. Well, I would play that Romo highlight where the announcer was against the Seattle football team, and Dave Sims was the guy doing the play-by-play for the Seattle Mariners. And now Sims, of course, is with the Yankees. And I have to thank. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Steve.
No, I was just going to say, thinking of Dave Sims with the Yankees, Susan Wallman participated in the book. Mike Breen participated in the book. Howie Rose participated in the book. So I have to thank them for really being a part of the book. People very well known, much more than me. You know, in our world, Gary, we think everyone cares about sports, regardless of your team. One thing about the New York fan, and I mean, it's the way it should be here. They scrutinize, they're honest, they're passionate, they're knowledgeable. And when I say honest, if you're an athlete and you don't have a good game and you have stunk up the joint and you don't hold yourself accountable or responsible, you'll hear from a crowd that knows in many cases how bad you were as a player. And in many cases, fans care more about the game they're watching and spending money on than the players they're rooting for.
All right, we're going to go Norm, Paul, and Bruce. And anybody else wants to ask a question, if you don't know how to raise your hand with the yellow hand, you can raise it and I'll write your name down. Norm, you're up.
Steve, it's Norm from Millbrae. And first
How you
thing
doing?
I want to say that you and Gary are a good team. You guys should go on the road together.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, at my age, you know, how do you really retire from talking unless you die? But the bottom line is, they let me come back once in a while, and I do a podcast, and you're not missing anything with that. But I do a podcast once, twice, 3 times a week, and so it keeps me out of trouble. But a lot of big things going on with WFAN. Craig Carton is coming back, and the overnight guy is going to join Carton in the afternoon. My good friend and surrogate son, Sal Licata, may be losing his job altogether. So change is going on at WFAN. But I started when I was getting a job on a top 40 radio station in San Francisco doing high school sports. And I'll tell you who I saw in high school. I saw O.J. Simpson. I saw Mike Holmgren. I saw Dan Fouts. They were all playing football when I was doing a high school sports report on a top 40 radio station. And Johnny Holiday was the morning man. And the reason I bring his name up is because as we speak, he is the voice of Maryland basketball, and I believe also pre and post game on Maryland football. And he was the morning man on the top 40 radio station when I started.
I knew you were going to say O.J. Simpson. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson. What's that?
I have 2 questions for you. I was born in San Francisco, as was my father. And so when you said that your father had a store in the Tenderloin, I was wondering what the name of the store was and how long it was there. And my second question is, what schools did you go to in San Francisco?
Yes, I went to Lowell High School. Carol Channing went there. Tom Meschery, who played for the Philadelphia Warriors, went there. I was on the basketball team there. I wasn't very good. And I was on the baseball team there. And I wasn't very good. In fact, I sat on the end of the bench in high school with talking into the knob of a bat. That was my microphone. And I did play-by-play of our team in the game as I sat at the far end of the dugout. So I went to Lowell High School, noted for a lot of Supreme Court justices over the years, and Carol Channing, hello, Dolly. And what was the other part of your question?
The name of your father's store and how long it was there.
Oh, yes, yeah. His store was called the Beverly Market at 517 O'Farrell Street. And it was between Leavenworth and Jones. And it was 3 blocks away from the Mitchell Brothers Theater. And why do I mention that? Because the Mitchell Brothers Theater had hired Marilyn Chambers, who had been on national TV doing Ivory soap commercials, but she was taking off all of her clothes at the Mitchell Brothers Theater and then making a movie called Behind the Green Door, one of the first porn movies. And my dad's store was 3 blocks away from the Mitchell Brothers Theater. And so in making deliveries for my dad, I would walk by that theater, and my mother didn't like, as I said before, I didn't like the fact that I was helping out my father in the Tenderloin. The bottom line is 517 O'Fell, and a couple of guys, when I was at the fan in 1990, 91, a couple of guys from Brooklyn went out to San Francisco on a little vacation and went to my dad's store. And I think they bought an orange or something like that. But my dad gave you a healthy sandwich, if nothing like the Stage Deli or Katz's Deli, but where they really give you a pound of meat. What is it? But the bottom line, my dad would give you a good sandwich. And the store was mom and pop, surrounded by supermarkets. But my dad worked very hard, along with his brother Morris. They did have a butcher for a while, but the store was surrounded by supermarkets. And so really, most of the pimps and the prostitutes went to those stores, much to the glee of my mother, who was glad that most of the inhabitants of that Tenderloin area didn't visit my dad that much.
That's great. How long was the store there?
About 35, 40 years.
All right. Thank
my
you so
dad,
much.
they had the store for a long time. And when they sold it, didn't make any money on it at all. But he worked hard and supported taking no shortcuts. No shortcuts. He worked 6 and 7 days a week, 8 to 10 to 11 hours a day, and took care of his family the right way with hard work and no shortcuts taken.
Thanks,
Great. I'm going to go out there, Steve, and see what's there now. I'll take a picture. I'll send it to Gary, and he can send it to you.
Okay, and take care of yourself. And for everybody listening here, I hope, first of all, thank you for being here and welcoming me. It's been my honor and my pleasure. And I want everybody, Gary and everybody, to have with family and friends and people they care about the best of the holiday season.
Great. We got 2 more. Paul, you're up.
Steve, I can't.
Steve, we got a couple more questions. Paul?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Sure.
Yeah, Steve, I just need to really thank you for all of those nights when I couldn't get to sleep, either because I was excited about the game I saw where somebody lost or where somebody won and I couldn't get to bed. And so I would turn you on and listen to your conversations. And I just really, really felt like you filled a wonderful niche for a lot of people who couldn't get to bed and who wanted to just listen. So, I just really wanted to say thank you very much for what you did.
Well, bless you for those very kind words. But let me also say this. You were there for me. I needed the same kind of support, the same kind of friendship or warmth or company, however word you want to use. So whatever you're saying, and I appreciate very much your very kind words, but you were there for me, and it works both ways. And I used to say that on the air, and I'll say it till the day I die. If it wasn't for you being there, I wasn't going to be where I was.
Well, I'll just say you're welcome. My question for you is, of all the times you're working a third, having worked a third shift when I started a career in another field, I know that it gets crazy late at night. What was the weirdest phone call or question you ever got from a caller?
Well, that's a good question on your part. I would have to give it some thought because there were, I'm sure, more than one. But the aforementioned Jerome from Manhattan, he was a prized example of weird and fun and offbeat. And I mean, as I said before with Jerome, he was just so very unique because he was just he was so diehard a Yankee fan, but so critical no matter what they did, including winning a World Series after another. But there were a few. If you were a bigot, if you were a racist, and and working overnight under the covers as I did, you are getting a lot of people wanting to bring up a lot of things. And I think one person who never called, I still remember to this day and still get communication from her this day. She never called, but in the very beginning, maybe a year or two into WFAN, I was getting letters from a young girl in high school. And the letters made me feel that she might be doing something she shouldn't be doing. She wasn't getting along with her parents. She wasn't popular at school. Other kids were making fun of her. And she thought being up in the middle of the night was something that, just listening to voices, she decided to write me letters. And I wrote back to her for a good year or two. And I thought maybe, God forbid, she was going to commit suicide. And I'll make a long story longer as I can do. She now is married. She has children. And she is a pharmacist in Pennsylvania. And I get emotional a little bit with thinking about her. But the bottom line is every Hanukkah, I get a card from her letting me know that my radio program helped her quite a bit. So that to me, and she never called, but she listened, and they were people listening, just as important, of course, as the people calling. People calling became real personalities on their own, and the people listening. I always say about my book that if you start reading, you have trouble sleeping, open it up. It might help you get to sleep.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Paul. Bruce
Yeah,
Slutsky.
thank you.
Bruce, you're up.
Thank you. What's
Let's
that?
go ahead. Unmute, Bruce. Bruce, you got on mute.
Okay.
Bruce, unmute. Bruce.
Well, I couldn't
Okay.
understand.
There we go,
that.
there we go.
Garble.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Okay, Steve, I have some comments about sports talk radio today and want to know what your opinions are. Number one, it seems that for the most part, there's a team of two on the air when years ago it was only one. And I think that nowadays that they spend too much time bantering between themselves and not paying enough attention to the callers. The other
I
thing is
agree
that
with
very
that.
often they get off the sports.
I agree with that. Well, I was lucky. First of all, not anybody else. I was the first in the country to do overnight, and on a station that was the first of its kind. And nobody, I mean, people made fun of me at work if I came in for a staff meeting during the day, they were taking shots at me for working in the middle of the night and working for scale. And I would have paid them, by the way. It was New York City where it matters. How can I not? I mean, I would have paid them if I wasn't getting even scale. But the bottom line, I agree with you. And the radio is not even the same anymore. It was more intimate and more personal when I was starting and doing it. And again, now it's a little bit different. You don't even need a radio unless you're in your car. I mean, you can listen on your phone, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X. I mean, all these platforms, you can listen and you don't even need a radio. So it's a little bit different. But the people calling, whether they looked at me as a voice in the middle of the night, I used to say, if you're a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker, you are going to be welcome. And there were students that called. I still run into people who say, I grew up listening to you. And how surreal is that? And how complimentary is that? How wonderful to hear that. But it's also hard to believe. And so, yeah, I mean, you know, because it's my mother used to say, who's listening? And I would say, what are you talking? New York is a 24-hour town. You want to hear something funny? Robert Klein, the comedian, the actor, we went to lunch recently at the Friars Club. He originally thought I was from Brooklyn, New York. What a compliment.
Bruce, your second question?
Yeah. The other question I had also seems that the hosts very often get off the sports topic and start talking about other things that are relevant. And they consider that man talk. Do you prefer that the hosts stick to sports, or is this man talk acceptable?
Yeah, I know what you're talking. I don't want to talk to urinals. I don't want to talk that what you're really describing as a man talk. It should be always New York sports, number one. And I'll give you an example of what I didn't like, and it's in the book. And probably Russ Salzberg will never talk to me again. But I brought it up in the book, and I brought it up with the students from William Patterson University about a week ago when I was addressing and meeting their students who had to do an assignment after reading the book, if you can believe. But anyway, Russ Salzberg, after working overnight, Russ Salzberg had no ratings, working 10 to 1, midday. And so they didn't want to fire him. He was also working at Channel 9 on TV as a sports anchor. And so they wanted to put me with them. And at first I said, no, I'm happy working these hours overnight. I've been accepted. They've given me an opportunity, a chance. I'm getting along. I love doing it. I sleep during the day, not a problem. I wasn't making any money, but I didn't care. I was happy, the happiest time in my life. And I so enjoyed the callers doing the production, the shtick, with Seinfeld being a part. I mean, the whole thing. Joan Rivers, the comedian who died in her dentist's office, as you know, she called one night, not to be on the air, but she called to provide me a cleaning lady, because I said on the air that my apartment is really a dump. But I said, but it's lived in. I would rather say that. And so Joan Rivers called to suggest a cleaning lady for me. And then, and we verified that it was her. And can you believe even her calling? But what was the question again? See, I start diverting. I'm excited being on this Zoom without the Zooming. but whatever. What was the question again?
Bruce was saying, do you prefer the host to just stick to sports instead of the man talk?
Oh, yeah. No, sports, of course. But the man talk may come up, over the course of a few hours, but it shouldn't be central. It shouldn't be the focal point of any sports talk program. You can combine the two. You can make analogies and compare, real life and sports. But you always have to remember sports is number one, and entertainment. Let me just get back to that Russ Salzberg thing. I didn't want to join him in the beginning. I was happy overnight, but they didn't want to fire him. Mike Breen, who was doing sports with Imus, said about Russ's show, the only people listening to it were members of his family. So they wanted to have me join Russ. Good cop, bad cop. Well, here's the thing, and this is terrible, and Russ will probably never speak to me again, but we talked about it before. On a Sunday, the Knicks were in the playoffs against Miami. And maybe some of you remember when at the very end of the game before Allen Houston was going to win it with a game-winning layup, there was an incident with Jeff Van Gundy, Alonzo Mourning, where Jeff Van Gundy, the Knickerbocker coach, grabs the leg of Alonzo Mourning during a scuffle, and Ewing was suspended for a game, a number of Knicks. And it was a playoff game. And with this incident with Van Gundy and Alonzo Mourning and his leg and Patrick Ewing, so Russ, that's the next day, Monday at 10 a.m., that's our lead. But Russ brings up to start the program the episode with The Sopranos the night before. Well, you can't do that. Now, everybody watched The Sopranos, yes. Me too. And a great Breaking Bad and The Honeymooners, The Sopranos. Those are three of the greatest TV shows I've ever seen. But anyway, Russ leads up with The Sopranos and not the Knicks in Miami. And that was the talk of the town with Van Gundy getting suspended and Ewing and grabbing Alonzo Mourning's leg and Allen Houston winning the game. It was a playoff game with the Knicks and Miami, arch rivals, and he wants to bring up the episode with The Sopranos. You couldn't do that. Now, talking about The Sopranos would be okay, but not to lead off at 10 o'clock when you have a major sports story to talk about. So that's what I didn't like. I always said that working with Russ was like working with a member of the family, the Manson family, the Addams family.
Does anybody else have a quick comment? Howard, go ahead.
Yeah, Steve,
Yes.
I'm one of those insomniacs that used to listen to you back in the 90s and early 2000s. I don't know about Paul, but I actually did call you and I spoke to you several times, and I always enjoyed that. And hearing you mention Icelanders tonight reminds me when I used to call the Islanders fish sticks when they came out with those horrible uniforms, whenever that happened to be. I always enjoyed talking to you. I was listening to FAN in the very beginning, and I think it was July of '87 or something to that effect. The one bad experience I had with FAN, I once got into a fight with Mad Dog. Something about the Knicks. I don't remember what it was. It was in the afternoon. I was home from work sick or something that day. And we were screaming at each other. And Mike Francesca got in and kind of was like the referee. And he actually took my side. So I was very, very pleased about that. And the last thing I want to say is that I know you mentioned earlier that you saw a lot of significant games, Giant games on the West Coast. I saw one at Chase Stadium that was probably significant for all of baseball. I was at the game where Masanori Murakami made his debut against the Mets, coming in relief for the Giants. And I believe he was the first Japanese pitcher to come in to a Major League Baseball game. And here we are 60 years later, and you got somebody like Ohtani, who was just like, so, he's not human. But
Right.
But
Yeah.
anyway, I did enjoy talking to you back in the 90s, early 2000s, on those long nights when I just couldn't get to sleep. And thanks for everything. I enjoy listening to you on FAN all the time.
The beauty of Steve Summers was, unlike a lot of the hosts, he never ever berated any of the callers ever.
Oh,
That's why.
no,
That's
no,
why he was so
no.
loved.
Russo's the worst.
Willie, you're
Of
up,
course
Willie.
not. Yeah, I needed them. I became friends with a number of callers. It was they gave me a chance, Gary, and the people there. They gave me a breath. They gave me a life.
You
They
know,
gave me the opportunity. They were patient with me, and they were as much the highlight of the pro. I know it sounds gratuitous, and they were as much a part of the program as to me as I was to them.
you know,
It really.
Harvey said, you know, he led off with first time, long time, first time. I never called into your show once. I don't call sports talk shows, but I love
Yeah.
listening to you. I taught in Queens and I have to get up early, so I listened every night I could, and it was just fabulous. And Willie, you're up, Willie.
Yeah, Steve, thank you so much for being here. I've really enjoyed this. I just wanted to say that I listened to you for many years. I never called in, but I listened to you, and I'm looking forward to buying your book and reading it.
Well,
Anybody
bless
else?
you for that. That means everything to me, and it's a compliment. And I will take a compliment. I wish I believed that much good things about what you say or what anyone says. I wish I thought that way about myself, and I'm proud that I was able to last as long as I did. And I think, to be honest with all and everybody, I think you want to be good, but I know when I wasn't that good, when the energy wasn't there, you want to be good, but you also have to be lucky. And I was lucky too. And you could say, Leah, luck is the residue of design. And I loved writing a monologue and delivering it the way I wanted to. And I so enjoyed the callers. It wasn't work. It was a lifestyle. It was just time of my life.
Fabulous. Hey, Dale, you want to close us out?
What is that?
I'm asking one of our members. Dale, you want to close us out?
No.
Sure. I was also similar to you, Gary. I always listened to Steve Summers. I always listened to your show. I was a huge fan. I just loved, you always brought a smile to my face. You had a very nice manner to you, and you always kind of wanted to make me chuckle a little bit. And there's always a very sweet manner about you, and you're very knowledgeable about the game. So I was a huge fan of yours. So just want to say thank you also.
You have made my day and my night, and I bless you for that, and I thank you very much for those kind words. But I needed you too. See, you being there, I know it goes with the title of the book, Me Here, You There, but really anybody. I don't care who you are with the radio, with the TV, if the people that were listening to you were not there, you weren't going to be on. So I was glad and am glad to hear those words, because it makes those nights that you were maybe not as good as you thought you could have been, but it's all so worthwhile. And you have made my day and made my night. But also know, and I'll say it again, I needed you as much as you might have needed a listen every now and then to me. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you,
Thank
Dale.
you.
Steve, what is the best way to get your book? If you're not coming to Finities,
what's that?
If you're not coming to Finities, what is the best way to get your book? Through Amazon?
Well, I'm going to be there. So on December 20th. First of all, it can be ordered online at Amazon, and it is out at various Barnes and Nobles. On Monday, next Monday, I'm going to be just there to sign books, and then soon thereafter Monday, be at Barnes and Noble on Fifth Avenue. There's a number of places that WFAN is going to be promoting on all of their platforms, including WFAN, Instagram, X, Facebook, all of those kinds of platforms. WFAN is willing to promote the book. And I will say this, in the category of sports journalism, on Amazon, our book was rated #1 out of the top 100. So that blows me away also. Journalist, what's a journalist? Not me. But I'm a broadcaster. What is it? But the bottom line is thank you all very much for having me. Thank you for your patience.
Let's all give it up. Let's all give it up to Steve Summers.
Thank you so much, Steve. Absolutely.
Again, you could see Steve. You could see Steve and buy his book on December 20th at Finity's. Again, anybody who's in the audience, if you did not sign up to go, I now have some extra space. Just email me. I will send you the details. But Steve Summers, me here, you there, my 3 decades overnight, under the cover, schmoozing, SPORTS Sports, as Captain Midnight for WFAN. Steve, we can't wait to see you on the 20th. Let's all give one round of applause for Steve Summers. Steve, take good care.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Gary, and thank you for those with the Zoom, and bless you all. Everybody, please have a terrific holiday season. Again, Gary, thank you so much.
And we'll see each other next Thursday with David Krell. I'll hang around for a little bit to talk. Good night, everybody.